Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to this episode of the Empowered Artist Collective podcast. I am Jennifer, she, her pronouns. I am so excited today to be talking with the Dr. Angelica McCarthy, who has been with EAC since the start. Um, Truly, like, the breadth of knowledge is incredible, and when I asked her to be on this podcast, it was like a no-brainer, which truly just warmed my heart, but really just more for your ears because, get out your pens and papers. This is gonna be a juicy one, even though we haven't even started yet. I know it will be. So, without further ado, hello, my dear.
Hello, hello, hello. I always love coming back to EAC and just the holistic nature, the love, the joy. I have chills. So
I
I'm
mean,
so honored to be here and
the feeling is so mutual, and it honestly isn't what it is without you. Like, you have literally been integral to the entire process that we have had with EAC. So, I
and
mean,
I
it's
thank you for that. I
well,
mean,
thank you. I mean,
yes.
this is just like a love fest back and forth. Like, thank you. No, thank you. No, thank you.
As we already know, we could keep going. So
Well, tell everyone who's listening who you are. I don't need to introduce you. You can introduce yourself the way you want to be introduced into this space.
yeah, well, and for anyone who does or doesn't know me, my name is Dr. Angelica McCarthy, and I use she, her pronouns. I am a doctor of athletic training, and I've specialized in performing arts medicine and sports medicine, but primarily performing arts for the past 11 years. So I've had my background in understanding the artist, taking care of the artist, what it means to be out on that stage, mind, body, soul, all of the things. That it takes to be out on that stage, and I support in the background, and that's one of the biggest um, purposes of my career, of my life's work, is to help serve the arts and bring that awareness to our bodies, bring that understanding to the body, so that we can support our life, our health, our well-being, our movement. If you're a mover out on the stage, if you're a vocalist, whoever you are, what you do, we can bring that awareness to your body so that you are able to get out there and live your life as full, as wholly as possible. So that's the skinny of it, but that's the true essence of like why I wake up every day, to serve in that manner. So
Yeah, I mean, it's a conversation that obviously we'll continue getting further into during this exact time together. But, so often as humans, but specifically as artists, we we don't really focus on our physical I'll speak for myself. I didn't focus on my physical health and wellness because I took it for granted for so long. You think when you're young and sprightly, it's like all gonna be cool.
yeah,
And we don't realize just literally the fact that what we do is our bodies. It is every single day you show up, whether it is your voice, whether it is your mind, spirit, everything is within your body. And to not take care of that, the ramifications of that down the line are could be really grave. Um, I wonder if you can talk about, just from your experiences, what you perhaps have seen in terms of impact over time or generally of
yeah,
body, of people, and like doing the thing over and over and over again,
yeah.
impact.
Well, yeah, it's with my background in musical theater. You all are performing 8 shows. What does that choreography look like? What does singing that same intense, vocal, high notes, low notes, in and out. The strain and stress that your body has to go through to be at that relative peak performance level that you so choose to be out there. Is demanding. If we were to do a one-off, okay, cool, I killed it and I was great and I was able to prepare to do just this one time, and then I can go on and recover and do all the things that I need. But when we get into that repetitive nature of, okay, I'm doing this for 2 hours, I'm doing this 2 hours times eight, and then Lord knows, I remember the days where so many artists end up doing double duty. I'm rehearsing another show or I'm workshopping another show, and then I'm coming to do my 8 hour show. It's like that can be a 10+ hour day
Mhm.
of intense movement, energy that you're expending. Um, and how do you fill that back up? Where do you find that you're able to fill that back up? Able to, one, and then two, are you doing enough? And half the time when we're so tired and fatigued and whatnot, our first thought is to, I need to eat and sleep, and then that's it.
Mhm.
Whereas there's so much more, especially if you're a mover, in the sense of dancer, or you can be anyone. You could be a vocalist, you could be an actor, anyone. You were all movers. So it's to say, what do our bodies need in order to be able to support us in that? And I've seen it so many times where the injuries occur, the illnesses occur. Sometimes, times X more than what it needs to, because of the stress and strain that we put ourselves in. Sometimes we don't see ourselves as the holistic nature of, okay, today mentally I'm just not in it, but I have to go anyway. So how does that allow you to show up today? The energy of my environment, of my social support, all of these different things that play a role in our wellness and our well-being, that sometimes we take for granted or we don't think about. And then I've seen it when people have that light and they're like, yes, I know exactly, I'm aware, I do this, I have this routine. And then, they're able to step out every day and it shifts and it changes. But it's to say the impact can be huge on either level, on either end of the spectrum.
Yeah.
It's just all in our awareness and understanding of who we are in those moments and what we need to do so that we can really truly do what we want to do.
Well, let's get into it then for a second with what you just said. Let's say you are with a client of yours, or let's say you were working, you come in for a show and they have you work with every single person in the cast or whatever it is. What do you suggest? And obviously it depends on an individual and their body. But for someone who is maybe newer to focusing in on their physical health and wellness or just their wellness generally, what do you often recommend to people to be like, "Hey, this is a really good first step for you to be, like, clocking what's happened," or, "Hey, this is a thing that I recommend you can do right now that kind of resets or focuses in on where you are?"
Yeah, that's a great question, and it will change with each individual because we
Mhm.
are so different. But when in doubt, it always comes down to being mindful or paying attention to what we're doing, how we're doing it, who we are, all those things. So, if you come in and have like a one-on-one treatment with me, you'll probably be able to count on however many fingers and toes how many times I say be mindful, or are you aware of, or asking questions that are more geared to where your relative level of attention is of who you are and what you're doing. And if we don't have that awareness of ourselves, if we don't have that awareness of our bodies, then yeah, it's going to feel like you're just piecemealing,
Mhm.
just like get by. Whereas if I know that my left shoulder has been killing me when I do this partner lift, and I know exactly where that point in time is, or I can at least start to focus there, then I can say, okay, what do I need to do to help change that? Or if I had a really rough night of sleep last night. I wasn't able to get good sleep. And then I woke up with mental fog, and I had to then run out the door and I didn't have breakfast, or just different things like that, as to know that, how are you feeling yourself? Are you feeling yourself? Are you recovering at the end of the day? And then what is your in between? What is your daily routine that if I do these, five things today, I know that my day is going to be great and I'm going to be able to discern between, oh crap, my partner almost dropped me and I had to you know, tense up really quick to protect myself. But my body is going to be like, okay, we're cool because we at least did so much for ourselves, and then what do we need to know to be able to recover from that? So it's definitely in paying attention, being
Mhm.
mindful. Mindfulness, if you don't practice it, it's okay, but it's to say, like, slow down a beat and let's start to figure it out. We're about dissecting and going deeper. That's where we get that understanding.
I was gonna ask you too, because that buzzword mindfulness, at this point now, it's also just become like a sales tactic for companies to simply just, like, tell us what they think we need, even though that's right? So, for you, when you say mindfulness, what is that?
Yeah, it's literally paying attention. It's instead of case in point, and um, all of this knowledge and insight that I give has come through my own journey with it too. Myself on my end of being in the arts has always been like go 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 go. taking care of artists in all of the great ways to help them keep them on the stage. I can count how many times I was burnt out in my career thus far, and then that affects how I'm giving care. That affects
Mhm.
how I'm doing things. And so to that mindfulness is literally paying attention. It's slowing down. It's saying, you know what, be in the present moment and see what's in front of me. And then I can help it. That will help me to discern what actions, how I'm just making decisions. Um, you know, if I've seen, however many clients today, maybe it's to say, you know what, my body is really, really starting to not like this. It's starting to really be worn down, and it prevents me from being able to do all these other things that I want to do. So, okay, maybe I change my schedule. Maybe I change how I'm doing the work, the efficiency and quality of work that I do. And so, mindfulness just allows you to be present with it. And it's present to see it, accept it, and then make those best decisions that are those choices that actually align with you. And we're not just running around and be like, oh, I have to go do this, I have to go do that, I have to go do that. And then what did you truly do for yourself? How did you come into yourself to do all of these things today? So that's kind of my take on it,
Yeah.
without it being like the official definition of it. But it's just like, yeah, just open up, open.
I know I was taught once, maybe it's from my chiropractor or something, or I forget who told me, fidget spinners, for example, were a thing, right? So that we can like focus presently. And they sold us this little thing that was actually really fun and spun around. But there's this tool. And I guess if you are not watching this as a video and you're looking at it and you're listening to this on a podcast, um, if you take your two fingers, your thumb and your pointer finger, or frankly any finger, and this just like rubbing of it, and you can train yourself. I don't. This is some. I forget the tool I should probably. It'll maybe in the show notes. I don't know. But if you literally rub your two fingers together and you start to train yourself daily about that sensation, that is a way for you to simply just, halt and ground yourself. You can also do that with your toes in your shoes, but I would imagine that you have other tricks too that are just like these smaller little things physically that in our own bodies we're able to bring ourselves awareness. Because I know so often, and I can think back to when like a younger version of myself, when you're doing 1,000 different things.
Yep.
We're taught, frankly, that we need to be doing 1,000 different things in order to stay on this hamster wheel, in order to make moves forward, right? But these little small things to ground us in the moment, although they might seem silly, are actually the things that make us more present and put us in the present. And I know for me, this, mindfulness it feels so weighted because I'm like, well, I'm not doing this, or I'm not, but as opposed to like, oh, I can literally do this. I'm being mindful about putting my
Yes.
two fingers together. And now I feel the sensation in my body of what those two things feel like
Yes.
on me.
I and this is kind of like it's like being in your body. It's
Mhm.
literally that. And I've had so many people where they go out on that stage, and it is a positive thing to be out of your body in that sense, because that's your energy. That's like you're just going,
Mm,
you're flowing. But then to be out of your so external, so outside of your body that you don't even know how you twisted your ankle,
mm,
know where or how or what you were doing, or you made a decision to just go extra hard and then you twisted your ankle. It's like, okay, maybe we could have prevented a smaller piece of that. It's not to say that you can prevent everything.
yeah.
So, yeah, it's sensations, it's, thoughts, feelings, emotions. It's really like, if I get really stressed at one point, why am I getting stressed? What's the thing that is coming my way? Because as we'll talk about, but like the manifestation of stress and emotions and feelings that shows up in the body. So you mentioned like the little tool of rubbing your two fingers. I always, if even if you're with me and you're on the table, we're doing body scans, or I'll be the first one to be like, "Hey, do you do a body scan?" Because
Mhm.
if you literally give yourself just 5 minutes, take some deep start with your breathing, just deep breath in and out, because half the time we're not breathing anyways correctly. We're dysfunctional breathers in normal in life. Um, and you just scan parts of your body, and they're gonna tell you your body's gonna tell you what's going on. It's designed to do that.
Yeah. I mean,
So
you've been with us too when we've done these work like, that is my vibe. I am all about a body scan. I live
oh,
for a body scan. Love
it's
it.
so powerful, and to
Mhm.
feel like the sensation of energy once you like, hey, you know what? I've been having that chronic like thing in
Yep.
my neck, and let me just like slow down. Let me just scan my body real quick and go to that spot.
Mhm.
And I
Mhm.
actually just had a client yesterday, and we did that to their ankle, and real came to that realization of like, you know what? I've been putting fear in my ankle.
Mm.
I have a fear of I haven't felt supported in these last couple of months. They had a life change. They moved from one end of the country to the other. So it's and came to a new scenario where it's just them. So it's like it'll show up. It'll show up. And so us paying attention just in
Yeah.
that is to say like you could do some major work just by paying attention of your thoughts, your feelings, your sensations in your body. And then from there, okay, I'm my body, I know exactly what it's doing. I know exactly where we're going. I'm ready to like kill it, do whatever I need to do. So
I love all of that
yeah.
so very much. I mean, you brought it up. Let's talk about it. Stress, burnout, all of these things that we are naturally going through as humans, and
Yeah.
obviously now expedited and uh, really, really pressurized because of the pandemic that we are 2 years into. How have you seen it um, impact, manifest, find itself in people's bodies? And I guess, yeah, what are thoughts just generally about stress, and then we can kind of get more into it, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think the thing that I've noticed lately, because I've been looking at it differently, I've actually been asking the question a little bit and not specific to say like, how stressed are you?
Mm.
But it's like asking the question of how do you see yourself in these questions? So, how would you rate your general health, your physical health, your mental, emotional, your spiritual health and well being? And then going into those deeper questions of how do you want to feel every day? What do you want to master, like those fulfilling questions that can help um guide you in a relative direction.
Do
And
you ask them in terms of, like, numbers? Like, do you put it on a scale from, like, 1 to 10, or do you do it verbally?
yeah, so it's on a scale from poor to excellent, really.
Mhm.
And you have fair, good, very good. um And sometimes I ask this, like I've asked in a different realm. So I ask it on my intake form, just to gather a general like well-being sense.
Mhm.
And then I've actually asked it just recently, in a workplace setting because if I'm going to implement or attempt to implement wellness in the workplace type programming or offerings, I need to know that people want to receive it. And so let me know where you are right now. And so I've seen just relatively recently, more so probably than ever, because I've asked the questions of the stress and anxiety of COVID is still very real.
Oh, yeah.
And I think it also is that in that sense of like me really owning up and realizing it in myself too. And it took me a while because I don't know if you all remember like when COVID first hit and some people were able to just like take off with taking advantage of being online and like, yes, we're gonna do this, this,
Mhm.
this, this. It opened up so much creativity. It opened up so many things and opportunities. But then it also like did the opposite for a lot of people. And I
Mhm.
had myself had those ebbs and flows of yes, okay, I'm gonna change, I'm gonna adapt, pivot, and then all of a sudden it's like, you know what? I just don't want to do it that way. And next thing you know, months and months and months go by.
Yep.
And myself being in the arts in the capacity that I am and also in athletics, it still is going through it's like you don't know if you're gonna get canceled tomorrow or not. And
Yep.
so I definitely had a moment of like, you know what, this is it no matter what, I'm going to keep moving forward. And for a lot of people, they may not be at that place, and some people may have been there, done that, on to the next thing. And so it's to say it's all in our. I've done a lot of work as far as self talk and mindset to really like accept truly accept that COVID is still here and it's going to still be here in whatever capacity. And it's to say now, what coming back to myself, what do I need to do
Mhm.
to be able to decrease um, to decrease that stress or to decrease, anything that is contributing, paying attention. It gets back to paying attention.
Yeah.
So, yeah, COVID is still very real, and it's something that we need to see it from our own perspective first, and then decide what decisions we make from there,
Yeah.
to best support ourselves.
It's been a really, I think an individualized journey for everyone with COVID, but I know for myself the ways in which the trauma of, I was on a tour that, like, we stopped. Like, and then you think you're gonna go back in a couple of weeks, and so you're like, "Oh,
Yeah,
I'm chilling until my job returns." And then you're like, "Wait, no, but it's postponed a little bit more." And so this idea of, like, holding on to the hope of it, and then the loss of the thing, and then the creation of the new thing, and then the non-acknowledgement or maybe acknowledgement of what has transpired, or but, like, now you're having to deal with the newness, and all of that is trauma that is stored in our bodies. And I know I am actively working through the ways that it has manifested itself in me
yeah,
physically, emotionally, mentally, with my therapist, with my chiropractor, with whatever I'm doing, to, like, really hold my whole self, um in awareness for that, in addition to the normalcy of trying to get back into the swing of things and trying to stay diligent for the craft, and it's just this really incredible addition to our already wild careers that we've chosen, and industry and field that we've put ourselves in, and the impact of that on our bodies over time. And, I worry, and I also am curious, maybe for the wrong reasons, about the way in which all of these intensive years of COVID are going to manifest themselves down the line and really show their head down the line when us artists are like 5, 10 years out from these first couple years of impact. I'm like,
yeah.
oh, wow, that's literally been in my shoulder. That has literally been in my knee.
And that's why we need to literally start, like, whether yesterday, right now, if you're
Hmm.
thinking about it, maybe try it tomorrow. Like, it literally, you be the change literally right
Yeah.
now. And whether that's something that you need to figure out what that means, but, what do I need to do?
Hmm.
What do I truly need to do so that, one, I know that I can be secure, safe, all those things. It's COVID. No one wants to have COVID, but if I do get it, then am I prepared?
Hmm.
Is my body supported? Is it something that I'm going to be supported in my job and my career? If not, then what do I need to do? Like, it's to start thinking about those things without thinking about them. But the more that you're aware of yourself, and you're aware of your body, then the more that you're going to be able to be like, okay, you know what? This this big old huge barrier just plopped right in front of my path. And you know what? Oh, all I gotta do is just walk around it. Okay, cool. Done.
Mm,
You know. But
yeah.
that's easier said than done. That takes a lot of work. And I will give this to COVID of allowing the time to do that
Oh,
from
yeah.
my sense. But then also it's like, all right, it was like a flip of a switch. Like, you know what? Nope, I can't anymore. I'm not gonna do it. I'm not gonna allow myself to be like, oh, you know what? I'll just like do this because you don't know. It's like, okay, let me step out a little more and then protect myself.
Well, what would you say are some quote unquote must haves, that people would need in their metaphorical or actual toolbox that will help them to maintain or start to check in? Like, I know every body and human is different, but if you were a starting out package of, like, I am about to get into undergrad, or I just graduated from college, or I mean, just like any human being at any stage, what are your some, like, you must have these things, or at least start to be aware of these things? Is there a checklist? Maybe I'm off base.
Yeah, I would, because everyone is, and especially in our different phases of life, we're going to have different priorities. So I think it gets, in awareness itself, it gets down to, no one talks about the soul. We talk about our mind and our body, and that's it. But if we really like get down to our true essence, Like, what is what is my true being of what are my priorities? What are my values? What um, are my boundaries? Things like
Yeah.
that, which are like key terms. So it would take more learning and education. But I think it's to say that I think the number one question is how do you want to feel every day, and go off of that question. If I'm waking up every day and I just it's harder for me to roll out of bed, and then that leads into habits that just don't serve me, then how can I bring that to the forefront and pay attention and be like, you know what, let me just make this one change. I think you know we talk about habits and routines and whatnot, and we really don't get down to like the actual true science of it, which can sometimes be boring, but it's like there's a reason why. So, and like I said, paying attention to our emotions, our feelings, our sensations, things like that. When the more we do that, and our values and our priorities, and how do we want to feel every day? If you say you want to feel happy, but you don't feel happy, then what do you need to do to feel happy? It's not in me having this water bottle right here in my hand. This isn't gonna, if it does bring me happiness, it's because I'm gonna drink the water out of it and then that's it. Like,
Right.
what is it? What are the things that you can bring to yourself to be able to do that? But because life is all over the place and so many things contribute and are factors, if anything, the tools in your toolbox are literally the things that you're doing every day. How are you eating? Are you moving? Are you hydrated? How's your sleep? How are your emotions? So we talked about stress earlier. If we can figure out how to cope with our stress, or what are those triggers that are bringing on our stress, and how can I just take a minute, take some deep breaths, change my perspective, change my mindset, and then keep moving. And let's see, I think I forgot one, but no, those are the big ones. If we do at least those little bit of things each day, like piecemeal, the more that we're actually nourishing our body than we actually may think we are. And then if it comes down to oh, I do this big routine and I have all these other things that support me to be out on stage, that's great. That's stuff that you learn as you grow and figure out, as your body continues to live life. But, if anything, the basics are literally what we do every day. But it's to say, okay, you know what? I'm not going to eat that bag of Oreos for lunch. I'm going to have, a beautiful sandwich that has all the colors of the rainbow, like whatever that means. But it's to say, like, I'm paying attention to how I'm doing those small things, and that's what's going to, take me forward.
Yeah. Yeah. I I love that so much. Thinking about like, do I do this
Do
in
I
my
do?
own life?
I have to do it too.
I know. No, I know, and I'd like to think I'm relatively intentional, but, it's you can one can always be more intentional with oneself and choices, and I guess my follow-up to that would be, let's say you have a job that you don't love, but you need to pay your bills. You are
Hmm.
living in a housing situation that you have a lot of roommates that you don't love, that you found off of whatever, but you have to stay there because it's what you can afford, and that you are working long hours on your body and standing on your feet, and then you need to go and you need to tape a dance routine on those same feet in your small little apartment, and then life is happening, and then you're in a pandemic, and then I mean, all of this, we can keep piling it on, make this the worst case scenario, but
Yeah, that's the thing, though. That's someone's scenario
yeah, for
in,
sure.
in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah,
That is a real scenario. And
correct.
I'm over here laughing and smiling because I've got chills, and it's like, girl, like, throw it all down. Yes, that is someone's real life scenario.
Absolutely.
And it may feel like absolute crap.
Yeah.
And
And so then
that's
how do you, in those moments when it actually is life, not death, hopefully, but like it's your life and you are trying to stay afloat in that, how do you, when do you really is probably the bigger question. When do you, and how do you take the time to be like, all right, I'm here, or this is something that I can sub out? What if somebody isn't in a place of privilege enough to be able to make that choice?
yeah. Well, I've got so many answers to this question, and they're gonna look like they're from the outside, and they're gonna feel that way because in some, like I said, some way, shape, or form, that's a scenario. And so some of those things that you mentioned in there have been, a scenario in my life as just who I am and what I do. I don't even have to be, out on stage and
Right.
have like an artist's type performer lifestyle. Um, but it's to say that, and remember, this is coming from the other side of the table now, because I feel like it's looking in hindsight a little bit. But it's to say that whenever we attempt to make changes in life, we always expect, and this is just culture, we expect things to happen like yesterday.
Right.
We expect them to, oh, tomorrow I should be making the money that I need, and it's going to happen tomorrow. Reality, not reality. It depends. But it is to say that it's smaller changes, it's smaller things. And so, yeah, this is such a good question. Oh my goodness. So, in my perception of it, it's to say that we have to start to lead. So we have to start from somewhere. We have to lead the life that we truly want to lead. And so, like I said in that question before, how do you want to feel each day? If I know that all of these scenarios are not serving me, well, one, do I know that they're not serving me? But, it may just start there. But if I know they're not serving me, then it's to flip it from it's not doing, I can't because of these things, because I have to do all these other things. I don't have all of that, self-talk and mindset that is telling us that we're stuck where we are, and take the one thing that you feel like you can start to shift that mindset towards and change, and start from there. So if it's to say, oh, I don't have time, then make the time. You have to make the time. It's literally that easy, even though it feels like it's that hard. Because if I literally just read this in a devotional this morning too, as far as like in the needs that we have in life, but we feel like we just ask for them and hope that they come to us, we have to still do the work. And so for us to step forth and say, you know what, I need time, so I'm going to make time. I need more money, so at least if I need more money, then how can I figure what is to flip the other side of the coin and say, well, what is not working here in me making money, and how can I make it within what makes sense for me? What aligns with my values and my needs, my true needs. This job isn't serving me. So, what is it about the job that is not serving me? How am I showing up? Because a lot of the times it's telling us, what is it that it's not doing for us, and what are we not doing to contribute to allow it to be a pleasurable experience. And if it's not a good experience, and you feel like you've given of yourself to that in all of the ways that are within your values and your truth and whatnot, then yeah, then it's time to move on. But what do I need to do to move on? Like yeah, it's mindset, it's the talk, and it's to actually like shift it one piece at a time. Nothing is going to be some people, yeah, some people do have the fortune and privilege for things to just be like boom, they just switched over yesterday. But it's also to say, a lot of us where it takes time, it takes energy, it takes effort, it takes our own wants and desires to move the needle.
Yeah. Yes, yes, yes. I always talk about how, if your life is a big square, right? And you have a section of your life that's your family, and then a section that's your friends, and a section that's your job, and a section that's your, outdoors, and a section that's your baths, and your, whatever your sections are of your life, if you were to boil down the things that take up your time.
Yep.
And, so often we're like, okay, well, I'll cut a little bit of time from here. And if you look at the real big scope of your square of a life, if you only took a little tiny sliver, you're really not giving yourself much space for things to really kind of move around and reshift themselves, right?
Yep.
Enough of a change to really directly affect all the other little squares. And so sometimes the scariest thing, and I say this not being great at it, but the scariest thing is to like remove a chunk, or to like really decide for, okay, this period of time, I'm going to cut down on this chunk. And this chunk then isn't just a small little sliver of time. Now you've taken out an actively large square. And
Yeah.
now the opportunities of what can be put into that square are larger. Sometimes you might actually want more friend time to fill that. Sometimes you have a whole other square that's been sitting outside of this bigger square that you haven't been able to fit into your square that you want to finally insert into your square. And now this is the time to put it in.
Yep.
Right. And it's really scary though. Not saying this is an easy thing,
No, it's
but
very hard. Oh my god. Yeah,
yeah,
like, so hard.
but
But I will say though, and I'm sure you may say this too, not to assume, but when you do that, and then you're like, "Oh," like, your arms feel like you can
yeah,
you're just all the weight is gone. It's like, "Yes, that was so worth it."
yes,
And, like, I stood up for myself, and I
yep,
owned up to myself and what
yep.
I actually wanted and needed. Boom.
I mean, I don't know. It's hard to think back on a time when I didn't take a purposeful risk would maybe be the word, but a
Yep.
purposeful risk or an intentional choice when I don't look back and think that I'm so glad I did that. Like
Yeah,
I honestly cannot think of a time when I was like, I don't, you know what, this thing that I knew was going to be good for myself, I regret doing it because now it's good for me, you know?
yeah. I mean, hindsight, yeah, it was definitely autopilot, and there was no, like, thought, rhyme, or reason. It's like, "Oh, this is just what you do."
Yeah.
And then now in this space, it's like, "No, I'm gonna say no, and these are the reasons why I'm saying no, because I made sure I, you know, checked in with myself,
Yeah.
or I said yes, or yes, but, or, it's just being more open to life, really
Yeah. It's
makes
so and I'd say, like, even on top of life, it's like how life now, obviously, in addition to the pandemic on top of us, right? Those
it.
decisions feel even more overwhelming because of things that are outside of our control. So I guess that's kind of my next question is kind of piggybacking off of what we were just talking about. When these elements are out of our control, what is something or a tool that perhaps you use to feel in control? Not in a like tunnel visioned, not flexible way, but to bring you back to you.
Yeah, a friend of mine, this was probably like a year ago, so a year in pandemic, and he hit me with this phrase that it kind of like punched me across the face in a way, and I'm like, "Oh my goodness, this
Mm,
is yes." And it's like, "Well, what is being mirrored back to you?" And so when he said that, I'm like, "Holy crap, what is being mirrored back to me?" Because whenever I go into situations and feel like they're not going the way that I think they should, that's me trying to take control. That's me trying to step out and be like, "Oh, I'm going into expecting to go into a scenario that is going to be exactly how I thought it was going to be, blah blah blah." And then when it doesn't, um, then we feel a certain way, we react a certain way, all of those different things. So I always try to bring that perspective of what's being mirrored back to me. Like, so if this scenario, if I don't have control in it, what am I supposed to take from this? What am I supposed to learn? Or am I supposed to wait, be patient? Is this worth it? So many different questions, which, it takes the work to figure out the answer. But when it comes to control, all we can literally control is ourselves and our
mhm.
reactions and our responses and how we step out every day. So if I know what scenarios I want to relatively be in or how I want to lead life, then that's how I have to control that, you know?
Mm,
And then when you're around situations that really support and help that growth and change and whatnot, then that's the money. That's gold right there. But
mhm.
yeah, the control is literally like bring on that big old mirror and shine that light right on back and be like, okay, what is Angelica doing and or not doing to contribute to this situation?
Yeah. I love that. Because sometimes it's actually a beautiful mirror too. Like sometimes,
Yes.
I think so often we also think about wellness is yet another thing that we have to do
Yes.
versus this privilege that we have to take care of ourselves so that we can show up. So I love that idea of this mirror being reflected back because it's like, well, what if the mirror is reflecting back the fact that you showed up?
Yep.
Like, you did that. You came prepared. You came ready. You came, with all your heart and your soul. Like, you did that, and I think it could, instead of perhaps looking at all of this really with like the weight of, well, if I'm not maintaining these things or if I'm not doing these things well, it's also like, well, you're alive and you're breathing.
Exactly.
You did that. Your
Yeah.
body did that. Like, but you know what I mean? Like, we don't I don't know. I teach this a lot with students of mine, especially some of my voice students, where it's like breath is so foundational to what we do, and
Yeah.
we take for granted the fact that, as you said, like, we take for granted the fact that this is just something that we do. But one day you won't. We know that for a fact. You live and you die. Like that, we know those things. And one day you won't. And until that time, like, your body knows to give you life. It's literally doing that. And so I guess for me, it's like, I love that idea of a mirror. And even on the hardest days, you could still reflect that back to yourself and be like, oh, I'm literally breathing though.
Yep.
Like, yo, I did that. Like,
And not every day is not every day is gonna be perfect, you know? It
no.
may be a crappy day and we live in, not fun emotions, and that's just what it is. But I learned about that day though. I learned about, what was or wasn't contributing and, what do I do tomorrow, you know?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, I always try to flip it to the positive, even though things can sit in the negative, but the negative is just as positive as the positive, you know? So
Say that
it's
again. The negative is just as
negative is
positive.
just as positive as the positive.
Elaborate on that. What do you mean?
We go through fear and sadness and all of the negative emotions that we try to push away and push down and suppress. We try to push those away and they actually tell us something, you know.
Mhm.
Fear literally tells us, what do I need to do to protect myself? Or it can also hinder me. So it's to say, like, what do I need to protect myself? Okay, am I cool? Am I protected? Okay, cool. Now let's go on to the next thing. I learned how to react or respond in that scenario. So
Mm.
now, whenever I'm in that same scenario, my body and my brain, my whole system is going to be like, cool, we can kill this next time if we ever get into that type of scenario again.
I love that
But
phrasing. I love that phrasing.
if we let it, it's the same thing as stress. That's kind of where stress comes from. If stress is continues to compact and get chronic, then yeah, that's everything obviously should be in relative in air quotes balance. So it's to say if we do too much of the heavy or too much of the good, well, what am I? If I'm doing too much of the good, what have I gained and understood from the not so good?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. It's all feedback and it's all a learning
yes.
opportunity. Mhm.
Yes, but we have to be open and willing to receive that feedback,
Yes.
and that's why self-awareness or just awareness in general or paying attention, can be hard to come by because it actually, like it may be ugly. You may have
Yeah.
to, like, cry in the mirror literally and be like, "Oh, I don't like myself today, but you know
Yeah.
what? I'm gonna work on that because I know
Yeah.
that I don't want to be this type of way or feel this type of way." So,
Yeah.
yeah.
There's been a lot of those ugly cries in the mirror, let me tell
Yes.
you. We'll continue having those ugly cries in the mirror, I'm sure. I'm
Yeah.
sure. Um, as we wrap up our time together, which is, like, breaking my heart because I can talk to you literally forever,
Literally
um,
everywhere.
we did already kinda talk about some different tools and, methods through which we can kind of engage ourselves in these ways, but here at EAC, we're all about a tool resource. How do you actually take next steps type of thing,
Yeah.
small little baby steps. So I guess my open question is, are there specific resources you want to guide our listeners towards? Is there a specific takeaway tip or an actionable tool that we have not yet discussed that you want to impart upon our listeners?
Yeah, I mean, we've already talked about paying attention, and like I said earlier, like you could probably count on however many fingers and toes. At least start there, but it's also say be curious. What do you want to know? Body awareness is it's a lot of different things. Is it, where do you feel as though you want to grow? And so as far as resources, there are tons out there. I'm definitely a resource, and that's why I keep coming back because you all see that, and I those are like my affirmations. I am an example and I am a resource.
Mm.
Because if we're not talking about it, then what are we doing? I'm just sitting here, in my office, by
Yeah.
myself. So I'm definitely a resource. If anyone ever has any questions or thoughts, as to how, Jennifer's a resource. Oh my goodness,
Sure.
100%. We're here talking about the same things and we're in the same lane. Um, but in general, I think it's to say that, you know, if you're curious more so of your body, of what do I need to do, for my body to be able to maintain. If I am I curious about, what do I need to do to help with my mental well-being? How do I get deeper within my soul? I think with anything, it's to say, like, I'm a huge proponent of figuring out a way to just either breathe or meditate. And I think it's to say, like, that gives you that sense of just space and time with yourself, and ask yourself the hard questions and be willing to either not have the answer and be ready to figure it out if it's something that you really want. But yeah, I can definitely give you a ton more resources as far as like
Cool.
specific stuff. We can put it somewhere,
Yeah.
because it all depends on what you want and what you need, really,
Yeah.
um, as to where you go next.
Hmm. Yeah. I love that. Thank you. Um, Hello, fellow community members here listening. Dr. McCarthy is in your circle of support.
Yeah.
That is one thing that we at EAC have always said, and we will continue to say, is that anybody we bring in to share is because they believe that knowledge is power and we should be doing it together. So truly, when she says that she is a resource, she means it. So this is me saying, please reach out kindly. Um, and respectfully, all of this information will be in the show notes as well. Um, but I know that I'm excited for me. I'm excited to like listen back to this conversation because I feel like there were so many little small questions that you asked that I want to start asking of myself, and ways to start thinking about incorporating more curiosity in our lives around our bodies and our souls and our spirits and our hearts, that I know is impactful in many, many ways. So I'm so grateful that you came here and shared your time and spirit with us. As always,
Yes.
I
Thank
adore you. Also,
you.
you know what's wild? Literally, still haven't met you in real life.
I
It's been 2 years almost.
it has been 2 years, and it's just so funny that there are quite a few relationships that are quite meaningful in
Yeah.
my life and have come through the pandemic. And
Hmm.
it's these relationships like these where it's like, yeah, you've never met each other, but like the energy is so real.
I know.
You love exactly what they're doing, how they're doing it, and you want to be a part. And it's yeah. I talk to you though, and I talk to some of my friends, so it's like
I know, that's what I'm saying. I'm like, I mean, I consider you a friend, and I've never
yes,
literally sat and kikied with you in a
100%.
room. So it's
100%.
it's wild. Thank you so, so, so much.
Yes.
And until next time.
Yes. I look forward to it.